Hi, my name is May. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to draw type 4 hair. It's going to be leaning more towards like 4B-ish, 4C hair. These are all the utensils I'm going to be using, including the lead eraser and then both kinds of pencils that I'm using. I just used two different kinds of lead. One pencil has normal lead in it and then the other pencil has purple lead in it. So getting started, I start with the circle, which is your general afro shape. Fros look different based on their size and then the hair type. A longer fro is going to look like the first photo that I show, and then of course the shorter one's going to look like the last photo that I show. How I get the illusion of like the curls and that actual like fro-y look to a drawing is by drawing these clusters. So for an example, I drew this like diagram so you can see kind of what I mean. It kind of looks like bubbles, but I just make it really small and then I frame the whole fro by doing that, if that makes sense. Generally, when I'm drawing 4B or 4C hair, the tighter the curl pattern, the smaller those like small bubble or clusters are going to look. So for this drawing, I made the clusters very small because I wanted her curl pattern to look much smaller. When I'm drawing looser textured curl patterns, the pencil strokes are going to be looser in a more wavy motion than it is like a tight coil or tight curl. Here's one of my other drawings for an example of a looser curl that I would draw. And then here's one of my drawings that has like a 4C very tighter texture curl that I would draw. How I add depth to the fro is by further expanding on those bubbles or those clusters by adding more to it and then shading the ones in the background. So like here's an example of what I mean when I say shading the ones in the background. I kind of just create more fro-like texture so that it can give the illusion of that density that fros typically have. I do this cluster technique throughout the entire fro, and then I kind of just center it, or not really center it, but like the direction of the clusters I make sure are framing the hair properly, so it ends up kind of looking like cloud-like. Now that I think about it, a cloud is actually a very good example of the technique that I use to make afro hair. So this spot right here is a good example of what I meant when I said I create depth by adding more of those clusters. So you see how I came back in through the initial line that I made through the first layer of the fro, and then I created another layer, and then I went back and shaded it to create that depth that I was talking about earlier. Here I'm just obviously erasing the forehead line because we don't need that no more. And then I just go through and I complete the rest of the fro. I'm not really giving her bangs, but more so like a fro kind of just overhangs over your forehead. So I'm just completing the rest of that look. I'm going to start shading at the base of the neck and then at the bottom of the fro, and then lightening the pencil strokes as I get higher up in the fro to emphasize where I want the light to fall the most. Here's the cluster spot from earlier again that I'm shading in to create depth and shadows for the hair. Another important spot to shade are pretty much where your temples are, or like around those, you see where the ears go, the tops of the ears, or like the sides of the eyes. I shade on both sides of that because it gives the it shows where the front of the hair or the bang stops and then the back of the hair continues like behind the ear. Now I'm just going through and I'm darkening some of the curls, especially in spots that I feel like are going to have shadows the most. I like to use the other pencil to darken those spots that I was darkening earlier even more. It creates much more of a shadow or a shade that I want to, and then I come back with my other pencil later and continue shading. Basically, I'm just building on the values that I placed before. So I'm just going back and forth between the pencils now, darkening what I feel like needs to be darkened, and then just making sure that I'm making the hair pop in certain areas that it needs to be. and repeating the past few steps as far as making sure that I'm darkening that area around the neck and around the temples, because those are the areas that create that highlight on the top of the fro and on the front the most. I feel like those are very important to give it that depth that I was talking about from earlier. And that's it. I hope this tutorial helped, and thank you all for watching.